A bigger splash was painted in 1967 after Hockney visited California, viewing the landscape and getting an overall vibe for what he saw as this expensive world of leisure. He was also inspired by an image he saw in a book about building swimming pools. This final version is one of 3 paintings where he explored this idea of a splash. In Hockney's own words, he said, "When you photograph a splash, you're freezing a moment and it becomes something else. A splash could never be seen this way in real life. It happens too quickly. And I was amused by this, so I painted it in a very, very slow way." In a way, this painting is the opposite of abstract painting and of Pollock's action paintings in particular. This scene is one of action, and yet it was painted very slowly and deliberately. Look at the lines here, the way Hockney created this movement of water. And also at the very precise blocks of color of the house and landscape. And I want to point out the use of primary colors in this painting, and they're all kind of in the same tonal family. It makes it really, really pleasing to look at and really adds to the serene quality of this piece. This painting is deceptive when you first look at it. It looks very simple from afar, but the intricate line work of the splash feels anything but simple, and actually when viewed up close, it has this amazing abstract feel and movement to it. In this 8 by 8 foot painting, we see a scene that is idyllic and almost dreamlike. Unlike many of his other paintings, there's no actual figure in the painting except for the knowledge that we have that a person is creating the splash. We just can't see them. There is something about that I just love. The disruption of the peaceful, dreamy scene with a splash creates a certain kind of tension, just as not being able to see the person come up for air after jumping into the pool does as well. The arrangement and position of the diving board even creates a tension with the way that it tilts just so. Hockney really created drama in this deceptively simple scene.
Vacation in Antibes, a seaside town in southern France. The way it's made is daring. See how Cassat cut off the boat, oar, and sail at the edges of the picture? It makes you feel as if you are in the boat too, doesn't it? Cassat was a professional artist at a time when it was rare for a woman to have such success. Mary Cassat was born in Pennsylvania to a wealthy family. She studied art in Philadelphia, but wanted to move to Paris to finish her training. At the time, this was an unusual path for a young woman. Her parents needed a lot of convincing. They finally agreed, and Cassat was trained in Parisian art studios and studied art in museums across Europe. Cassat's talent caught the attention of other artists in Paris, especially Edgar Degas, who became a good friend. She was invited to show her works of art with a young group of avant-garde painters known as the Impressionists. She was one of only 3 women, and the only American ever to do so. Cassat became well known for painting the world around her, and in particular, scenes of mothers and children. Notice here how well she captures the restless baby squirming in the mother's lap.
Sargent captured it in his painting Carnation Lily, Lily Rose from 1885 to 6.
You know, that title is pretty poetic, and the repetition in the title really gives us a sense of the idea of repetition of form and light throughout this painting. Look at the way that those Japanese lanterns move from left to right across the middle of this canvas,
forming a curving arabesque across the center.
They're almost like the notes that you would find in a musical score, and we do read across. But of course our eye also stops because there's so much that's beautiful to look at here.
All we have is this really lush, rich surface.
And there's nobody that moves paint across the surface of the canvas like Sargent. And look how he's just moved that brush across the surface in rendering those roses or the carnations down towards the bottom, or even the ridges of the lanterns themselves and the way in which those blue shadows play against the beautiful warm illumination from within.
It's interesting because the parts of a painting that you would expect to be illuminated are not. Everything is drenched in dusk. You look to the faces of the children for where they would be illuminated, where you might see the expression on a child's child's face, but he hasn't concentrated his attention there. His attention is dispersed across this decorative surface. The parts that are illuminated are these lanterns against this graying green forms of dusk.
Look at the way that the canvas is really flat, clearly the influence of Japanese prints. The way in which, for instance, the flowers are smallest at the feet of the children, and then as we move up to those large lilies, they rise. And that's directly in opposition to the way that paintings would normally be constructed, and it has the effect of making the background come forward.
And so there is a conflation of nature and childhood and innocence and all of those things coming together. It's just lovely.
And so 19th century.
So we have a painting that lacks any kind of a real subject except for the quality of light and color harmonies, these greens and peaches and pinks and whites. And we see this in British painting in the last half of the 19th century with artists like Albert Moore, where the subject of the painting is the color harmony, art for art's sake.
This is well into this movement that we know as aestheticism, which removes all of the literary, all of the weighty subjects of history, and really make the painting and the beauty of the painting its main focus.
And the formal qualities of the painting, right? Shapes, patterns, colors. Those are the things that become most important. We could think about artists also like Whistler. And it's easy to see how this becomes important for the beginnings of abstraction, looking at art not for what it's representing, not for the objects it's copying from the world, but for the things that art is made of itself.
Sargent actually painted this plein air, that is, he painted it in a garden. So he was also very interested in a tonal accuracy, in accuracy of form, even if, in fact, ultimately the painting is about painting. And apparently this was a bit of a frustration. Painting outside with models is not an easy thing, especially when you've got children, and dusk is such a fleeting moment. And so one could imagine him in England, in this garden, really trying to keep everybody's attention, making sure that the weather is right, making sure that the light is just right, and trying to get all of this down.
The children are really concentrating on the lighting of their lanterns